We did discover something pretty disturbing here, Pat.
Yeah, well, we were going to sort of bind this with the BBC Raqqa story. Do we still have that story? Okay, the BBC, it's interesting, have just released a story today claiming that the US and the UK and the Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF forces in Syria, have somehow allowed 600 ISIS fighters to escape Raqqa when it was being evacuated a few weeks ago. And the BBC released this report today, Mike. And I was floored, as many people have. The BBC have actually potentially released a truthful report in Syria. I don't know, I'm practically speechless, Mike. But yet, this is the same exact story which we reported at 21st Century Wire a couple of months ago about when Deir ez-Zor was being liberated. ISIS was being kicked out of Deir ez-Zor, not by the British military, but by the Syrian Arab Army, with the help of the Russians, Hezbollah, and Iran. Those ISIS commanders were being airlifted out of Deir ez-Zor. Okay, and so this is the coalition, in the full knowledge of the coalition, maybe actually actively airlifting them out in our choppers. Okay, now the BBC have put this Raqqa story out today, which is stunning. Okay, and if it is indeed, a good report, and we're going to applaud the BBC for that, but it really puts the US, the UK in the firing line, Mike, on this story, and the Kurds. The Kurdish SDF forces, which have been lionized as some sort of heroic force over the last few years by the Western media, since they were formed, I think, in the spring of 2016. And they're now colluding with ISIS, allowing 600 bloodthirsty, battle-hardened ISIS fighters and officers to escape Raqqa under the nose and supervision of the US-led coalition. So, Mike, this stuff that RT has been reporting for years. So is Putin now in charge of the BBC? Are the Russians meddling or manipulating the BBC's coverage that they did this Raqqa story? This is the big question. So this is a BBC newsroom, and look what we see in the back there. That's proof that the Russians are meddling in the BBC, Mike. It's right there. We've got the evidence. That's Putin in the BBC newsroom. He's controlling all of this.
Controlling it all.
This report on Raqqa is because of the Russians, Mike. They're weaponizing the information and getting it into the BBC. Can we get a statement from Theresa May about this?
I think we should.
We should.
Please post your letters to number 10 Downing Street.